So this week on the Let's Talk Cabling podcast, we're going to talk about the BICSI Conference. You probably attended, and it was a little bit different than it has been in the past, especially for some of us old guys. So come with us and let's talk about this.
Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you got to ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? In this podcast, you'll learn the differences between a 66 and 110 punch tool, the proper way to install a support cable, along with testing and certifying the cable. What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. So join us as we talk about the ever-changing world of telecommunications. From ISP to OSP, from copper to fiber, design to installation. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
So welcome to the show where we take the questions from you, the installers, the estimators, the project managers, the customers, where we are connecting at the human level so we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is created? If you're watching this on or listening to this on a podcast, such as iTunes or Google Play or one of the others, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? If not, email me, tell me what I can do to make this a 5-star. Those simple steps helps us to beat the algorithm so we can get this message out there to make an impact to the ICT community. And if you happen to miss any of this stuff, it's all recorded and it's stored on our webpage. So make sure that you go there, www.letstalkcabling.com. You will find all the podcasts, all the YouTube videos, and even some articles that I write from time to time. So there's a central clearinghouse for all that information. Now let's get on with the show. So this week, it was the BICSI Conference. And this time it was a little bit different than it has been in the past, probably for most people. For example, most of the time it was a face-to-face kind of conference, but the last couple times, because of COVID, BICSI's been doing virtual conferences. And so I had to put some people signed up to come in, let's have a group discussion, but some things fell through. So it's just going to be me and a good friend, Brad. And we're just going to talk about our experiences, and we're going to compare it to some of the stuff that some experience we've had in the past. So welcome to the show, Brad Everette. Brad, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Chuck. Good to see you.
Same here. So people who obviously watch my show know who I am. I'm just an old telephone guy that's been around for ages and ages and been doing communication since the old days when they had telephone poles and you had one conductor on each side. That was a twisted pair where they would flip it at every other pole. I'm not really that old, but I certainly look that old. Why don't you give us the quick 90-second view of you so the audience knows who you are?
Okay, quick 90 seconds. I think I've been in the industry long enough to fill 90 seconds. But yeah, I started off this whole industry in 93. It was my college internship. I started off actually building patch panels back in the old days, those old Category 5 patch panels, just before Cat 5e hit the market. And I kind of moved up through the ranks from there, production, purchasing, inventory management, right up through inside sales, then product management, marketing, sales, and now I'm the general manager of America Ellison Tech. We over the years, it's just been a lot of different growth, a lot of different exposure. It's been a lot of fun, and I've been tied, as you were speaking about BICSI, been tied to BICSI for at least 20 years of that, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a rewarding career. It's been a good organization to be a part of, and a lot of those old guys have been good mentors to us over the years.
Yeah, very cool. So it sounds like we had kind of a similar career path. This is funny because in this industry, I've started off as like everybody else, like an apprentice. I was the guy that got sent down to the truck to get the bucket of dial tone, the pranks that we always like to pull on each other, right? and and I worked my way up
Scott,
through the ranks and just kind of like everybody else. And of all the positions I've had, I want to say probably my most favorite, other than training, is estimating. I love estimating. Just love that. Love it. And I wouldn't have been able to have been afforded that. And this is where I'm tying this in. I wouldn't have been afforded that opportunity had I not discovered BICSI, had I not pursued my RCD certification and become, you know, you get looked at differently when you have that certification. People look at you as a subject matter expert, although I really hate that term because there are no experts in our industry. There really isn't. So let me ask you this.
accept it, Chuck.
Huh?
Go ahead and accept it. You are a subject matter expert.
My wife says I need to work on my accepting compliments. She says I really need to work on this. I guess you must be right. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Was this your first BICSI conference?
It was not. Again, I go back a couple of decades. I think my very first BICSI was in Nashville, Tennessee, back at the Opryland. Yeah, that was a good while back. But I've been around it several years. Definitely learned a lot. You were talking about those things that were your favorites over time. Mine was product management. Product line management was always a lot of fun, and I had to be that subject matter expert, not necessarily on systems. For you, there was the RCDD certification, things that supported that aspect of it. For me, it was a little more granular. I was more narrowed to the specific product segment as opposed to the network. Gotcha. So it's not an unlike experience.
Yeah, if I had to, and I don't know the actual count, but if I had to take a guess at how many BICSI conferences I've been over the years, I would definitely be using my third hand. Because I mean, because when I used to work for a very large national contractor in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they sent me every year. And I would go there and I learn, I bring stuff back and apply towards estimating stuff like that. So I've gone to a lot. And this is my second virtual conference. How many virtual, was this your second? I think this is the second one BICSI's done, right?
This was the second virtual because COVID shut us down right after winter last year. I remember leaving Tampa thinking, you know what, there's going to be an issue here. But yeah, we had Tampa last year, and then the fall was virtual, and then this one was virtual. I have done both of those. Good experience with both. I have to say, of all the virtual conferences and a lot of the different industries, and a lot of people have had to adjust, I say BICSI's done a better job than most. I definitely applaud what they've done. Their ability to give you as good of an experience as they can virtually. I mean, again, we always talk about we miss the handshakes and hugs, but right. But at the same time, I think BICSI's done an excellent job just giving you the best experience possible.
I got to admit, because I did go down to the Tampa one. I was just there for some committee meetings, but then I did attend the fall one virtually, again as an exhibitor, and then this one as well. And I got to admit that when they said they were doing it virtually, I was kind of apprehensive because I'm an old guy. I like the face-to-face stuff, and I liked all the going to the BICSI conference and meeting people, stuff like that. But I came away from that first virtual thing thinking, this isn't bad. This isn't bad. And then now that I've done the second one, I like it even more. I mean, and there's a lot of benefits, right? And I think one of the benefits is they have access to the content after the conference is over for, I don't remember what the time frame is. I think it was 30 days, but I'm not 100% positive. But think about when you go to the BICSI conferences that didn't have the real ones. If you missed out on that session, you missed out on that session. You were done. Yeah. So you've actually have experience against other virtual conferences, and you say that the BICSI one was better than the other ones?
Yeah, absolutely. BICSI's done a great job, and in speaking to some of the people at BICSI, I have heard from them that when they left Tampa, they were starting to look in that direction. Okay, in the event that this COVID thing does become a problem, in the event that we have to look at virtual events, they were already thinking about it, very proactive about it. I think they found an excellent platform with vFairs. And again, I can't say enough about them. I think they've done a great job. But one thing I'll add, you're talking about the benefits of the virtual event. Absolutely, the accessibility to it. But beyond that was the global reach of it. We had in the fall BICSI, for example, We even had our EMEA people who were able to access the event. You also have, because the exhibit hall is open basically 24/7 from the time things go live, we had people in EMEA working, we had people in Brazil working, we had people in Mexico working. So even even though it was a virtual event where you didn't have that face to face, at least you were able to get a much broader span. And I think in a lot of ways, the direct participation was better just because it was more accessible.
Well, one of the things I noticed, because I was going around between different chat rooms and stuff, and one of the things I noticed, I noticed the counts of the number of people in the chat rooms, and there was a couple in there, like, and then this is where you and I crossed paths with the Low Voltage Nation one. At one point, I happened to look at and I saw they were like 95 people in the chat room.
Yeah.
You'll never get 95 people in a booth at an event.
No.
And one thing I did notice is not only did they have 95, they were there. When you go to a face-to-face thing, you literally probably have maybe 30 seconds from the person walks in the booth. But at the virtual event, there were people going to the exhibitor chat rooms and staying there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people said, well, they weren't paying attention. We were actually in my full-time job. I was playing games with everybody. I was doing what I call the acronym challenge, and I was throwing out.
That. You did a great job of that.
Yeah, so I was throwing out acronyms, and they were coming back with answers, and so there was people in the chat room that hadn't really talked for like hours, and all of a sudden they started chiming in. So don't tell me they don't pay attention, because that's one of the cool things about the chat rooms is when you get that screen up, you start seeing that number starting to count up, the number of messages in a chat room. You say, hey, what's going on in there? I need to go check that out. And it just, it was a really cool fun. I'll tell you, I'll ask you what your favorite thing is about the chat in just a second, but what mine was, I went to, I don't remember who the manufacturer was, but I got a meeting with the lady next week. They do fusion splicing. And every hour they were doing a Zoom thing. So you can actually hop in, and then they would, you go to the Zoom, just like you and I are doing talk right now, there would be 4 or 5 people, there'd be a person demonstrating that, and they're doing it top every hour. It's like, that is a fantastic idea. Fantastic idea. So that brings up that face-to-face thing as almost being as good as face-to-face, because you're sitting there doing the demonstration stuff. What was your favorite thing about the chats?
Actually, that was the one you're talking about was Hallie.
Yes.
She's us. She was us. That was our company. But yeah, she did do a great job with that. And the rest of the group, Pete Delauria was in there. So was Chad Gardner was in it. So yeah, they were doing a lot of those things. And to tell you the truth, there were similar items. There were similar things to that where people did have booth type events. That was fun to watch, because I was telling you earlier, when we signed up for this, I did not sign up as a booth rep. I signed up as an attendee, which gave me that accessibility to the other people. And I really saw a lot of those things, good conversation. In a lot of those, it was, you heard people speaking some about their technology. You were always, in most of those chat rooms, even if there wasn't a public chat, there was a lot of one-on-one. As soon as you showed up in the booth, people immediately wanted to have a direct conversation. And you were able to hear their latest technology. What is it that they're bringing to the market? And there's no better place for that than BICSI.
Now, I'm sure somebody listening to this podcast at the moment probably thinks Chuck set that up. He literally pictures. No, Chuck's memory is that bad. That's how bad it is. And I didn't write it down. I've got it in my notes on my work computer, to contact her later and stuff. But that's just, I'm old. I'm old.
It's okay, Chuck. We'll forgive you.
There's a reason I have a book that I keep notes. It's not because I'm so organized. Let's just drop that hint right there. Yeah. No, I know that I didn't partake in any of the learning sessions, and I remember, I think you told me you didn't either, but did you hear any feedback on anybody who did attend them?
That's probably the one biggest negative about the virtual events is you didn't get to talk to people when they came out. Nice. You didn't run into anybody who said, I was just in the coolest event. I did not get to hear those. I've not heard a lot of conversation after the fact. There were a few that my people saw, and they were just saying, they sent me the links to say, hey, you need to go back and see this one. specifically go to this aspect because there's a technology piece, but I think I saw there's some 10 gig. I think there are some 5G. A lot of those different technologies and everything, where people have prompted me just to say, hey, go back and give these a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. That's kind of one of the things that's different between the face-to-face and the virtual is if you're out, if everybody's, coming out after a session and they're going to the pretzel stand. That was always my favorite part of the winter conference was the pretzel stand outside of the session thing. What can I say, right? You could be sitting there with sitting with a group of people and you can hear the conversations and you can interject and be part of it. That's unfortunately you can't do that in a virtual thing, but the virtual thing has many benefits that the face-to-face doesn't have either.
We keep having that conversation internally about the work from home thing about, you can work from home, you can do this at home, you can do that at home. And there are a lot of things that you could do in a work from home environment. The things you don't get are that you don't get the coffee pot chatter. Right. You don't get the engineer and the product manager and the sales guy who are going to lunch together and they leave and there's some new idea written on a napkin. Those are the things that you don't get out of any virtual event. And that's the thing that we're all looking forward to getting back to.
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember once when I was an estimator and I was the local Annixter rep came by with donuts and bagels like they always do, right? So I go over, I'm fixing myself a bagel and I happen to hear one of the project managers and it was there with this foreman and they're talking and they're complaining about this one particular job. So there was issues with it. It happened to be a job that I estimated. And I was like, well, wait a minute, what's the matter? And then we kind of have a three-way conversation, and then we were able to resolve it right there. Yeah, so that kind of stuff you won't get in a virtual event, but there are many other things. I do one. It's funny because I just filled out this survey, and I think you told me you just got yours, but the one thing I said that maybe might make a little better is have that chat box automatically scroll.
Yep.
And the only other thing I have about the virtual event was. First thing I want to say is it was really cool because when you pull up the screen, it's actually like you're looking into the event because they've got the people walking around and all that stuff and the billboards. The only thing that was missing, nobody had that familiar backpack with the BICSI thing on with all the stuff stuffed in.
That's true. They gotta have it.
They need to talk to the graphic artist there and say, you need to when you make the people have them have their little backpacks and stuff. So. Because you get any BICSI conference, any face-to-face one, that's the first thing they give you is the little envelope thing, right?
And they need the lanyard, and you need to see how many drink tickets they have left.
Yeah, drink tickets, and then you got to see the lanyards, the one with the one strap. Then you got to see that one person walking through with the 15 hanging off the bottom of his badge.
That's it. Yep. The ribbons down to the knees. Yeah, those are the old timers.
So let me ask you this, Brad. What suggestions would you have for BICSI and I don't represent BICSI and this is just two old guys talking. I want to make sure that's abundantly clear. I have no in on BICSI at all. What do you think they could do to make the events better moving forward?
I wish I could offer something, Chuck. I really do. When you look at it through the eyes of BICSI and the limitations of a virtual event, I think they have done just about everything possible. But when you look forward toward what could possibly be better, if they did have the ability to offer a hybrid offering going forward, I think it would be very beneficial to expand the reach of things like winter conference, fall conference, even a lot of the international things. I think you would see more participation at the local in-person events. We would have more from the conferences. We would have a bigger participation if you had that virtual option, right. That you could bring people into it. Because again, I think even the hybrid where you do have somebody there on site and somebody who can be very quickly brought into the conversation, I think that'd be beneficial.
It's funny, great minds think alike, because that was exactly what I was going to say too. Yeah. And I was even going to mention that in the survey that I did, but then I saw in the questionnaires, one of the things said something about doing a blended or a hybrid moving forward. That's the best of both worlds, because I mean, think about, you and I are both veterans of many BICSI conferences, and think about how many times you spend all day at that conference, and then every manufacturer invites people out at night to go to their favorite steak place or beer place, and there's all kinds of after hours parties, and sometimes, not that it's ever happened to me, but sometimes the next day after being out till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't make that first session, right? And if it's a virtual thing, you could just log in your room and just kind of catch it. Here's the really good thing. This thought just crossed my mind. Just weird how my brain thinks sometimes. It lowers the entry, the barrier to entry. Yeah, it lowers the barrier to entry for those people who may not be able to attend the conference. Right?
Totally agree. It would give you the ability, especially the guys who need the RCDD credits. You know what? Sometimes it could be about the financial investment, the travel. Those things get kind of big, and those are ongoing costs of maintaining your certification. If you had that ability to attend virtually, I think that could help.
I think that would also make it more attractive for a company to send somebody.
Absolutely.
Because when like I said, when I used to go every year when I worked for the contracting company, they paid my travel and expenses, they paid the fee and everything else, and just when you total that up, it was several $1,000s just to go there and attend it.
Absolutely. And then sometimes it's not just the financial cost; it's the opportunity cost. There are years I've seen years in this business when you had lower attendance at BICSI just because people were too busy. Things were going gangbusters. It tends to happen more in the summer and fall, I think, than winter conference. But you do see that impact sometimes where people just can't get away. But again, if you have that day or two where you can visit it online and you don't lose a day in travel to and fro and lose evenings and that kind of stuff, it'd be beneficial.
So I guess the last question I have, and again, this is supposed to be a group interview, but it's just two old guys having a conversation now. Well, one old guy.
Yeah, we should have the virtual mugs here with us or something.
Yeah. Maybe when I title this podcast, I'll call Coffee Talk at the BICSI Conference. All right, Coffee Talk after the BICSI Conference. That's one good. Yeah. So, and I know my answer. I'm gonna let you answer this one first. Would you recommend a BICSI conference to somebody who's never attended before, whether it's face-to-face or virtual, if they have the opportunity to do it?
Yeah, without question, I would suggest somebody attend it. And the reason is, and this is another conversation you and I have had offline, is this industry, we talk a lot of technology. There is a lot of technology involved here, but we tie very much to the construction industry. And when we tie to the construction industry, now you're talking about aspects of design, build, product specification, and not just on the technology side, but you really start to see how our business and our markets tie to HVAC, how they tie to plumbing and electrical. And in those MEP firms, a lot of times you're going to see the MEP firm is going to handle the datacom specifications as well. And now it's tying over to DAS. So now you're backing into the wireless industry, and it really, I think there's a lot of things to learn from BICSI beyond what you might see in one single booth. And oftentimes you'll see veterans of companies, and they really get a little bit myopic and start to feel like that they're the dog rather than the tail. And the truth is, it's every aspect, every booth has a contribution, but the market's much broader than just what's going on.
And that's one of the things I've always loved about the BICSI conferences is it doesn't just attract people in the ICT industry. And I would always look at people's badges. You had customers there, government people there, contractors, architects, designers, and it was always a great collaboration of a bunch of different people. That's why I've always loved the BICSI conferences. I've always loved them. They're expensive, but anything that's worth it is.
It can be expensive. It's and as we were saying earlier, the travel and all those things those tend to be the barriers. But as far as an event, it's not bad. And another thing that, again, this is I'm not trying to plug for BICSI here. I do not work for BICSI, or you. I think you'd said that earlier. But even those things that you find within BICSI, even those regional events, those regional conferences and local things at a local level, you got a lot of technology in those, and those same exhibitors who are offering the same technology just on a smaller scale, those are absolutely worth it.
Yeah, when I said expensive, I wasn't necessarily talking about the fee BICSI charge. I was talking about the travel expenses, the cost of the conference, and then, like you said, the cost of productivity because you're there and not back at the office. I'm talking about the overall cost. I have no idea how much a BICSI conference fee is compared to another one because I've only done the BICSI ones. I think you said you've done other ones. How does their pricing fare?
I'd say it's pretty comparable. It's pretty comparable, and things BICSI does that, things to allow access to the exhibit hall. Those are good, especially if somebody's looking to just dip a toe into BICSI. You're talking about like, if somebody was looking to, should they go? You know what? If you're questioning it, try to find a pass. Go online, do the registration for the virtual event, get that pass, get into the exhibit hall online, or hopefully in person, and just walk through it, see what's going on, understand the people, the technology, and I think you'll find it very welcoming no matter what. But then as far as cost goes, I would say it's pretty comparable. I mean, you see some that get really high, but as far as I think a full conference pass was, pretty.
Don't give out numbers because it'll be different by the time somebody else listens to this.
Exactly. Yeah, I hate to say numbers because, to tell you the truth, I didn't pay it specifically, but
yeah, and because somebody might be watching this video a year from today or 2 years from today, and the price might be different. But yeah, exactly. That's all I was really going.
Huh? Hey, that guy said it was this.
Exactly. I know that again, working for a contractor in the past, we used to do a lot of government work, and they used to go to this government vendor conference thing out in Hawaii every year. And they used to spend a ton of money because you imagine travel expenses going to Hawaii and then all that stuff on top of that. Yeah. So here's the last question, and then we'll go ahead and sign off for the night.
Sure.
On a star rating, we're rating them just like people can rate my podcast. 1 star meaning horrible, 5 stars meaning great. How would you rate the conference this year?
I'm going to say overall, it's probably a 5. Overall, I would have to give it a 5. I mean, if you broke that down to, into subcategories or something, if you gave me a dozen of them, it's going to average out to a 5. But it really is. It's difficult to think of what BICSI could have done better. It's difficult to try to imagine what anybody else what any attendee could have wanted out of it that they could have gotten within reason. Well, like I said, I think BICSI's done a great job, and I think the show, the leads that the manufacturers get out of it, the people they meet, the education and technology that's made available to the attendees, I think all that was very beneficial. One thing we did not talk about is there's the number of exhibitors seems to be down. So there are a lot of manufacturers, people who would traditionally be exhibiting at BICSI, who don't seem to be doing the virtual events, and I think that's those companies have things to offer as well, and you would like to see their participation.
I forgot to even kind of look at that. I normally, when you're going to the face-to-face conferences and you're in the exhibit hall, you see the booths and you can tell if there's as many people there as in the past. I didn't even think about that for the virtual, and I wonder if that's not a function of the virtual side of this, or is it more of a function of some companies are hurting because of COVID?
Could be both.
Yeah.
Could be, either or both.
And it doesn't surprise me, at least when you said earlier that coming out of the BICSI January in Tampa, they are already thinking about the virtual because they saw this stuff coming, because they're always looking to the future, always planning ahead. They're really, really good about that kind of stuff. They really are.
They're on top of it.
Any final thoughts on your experiences at the conference?
As far as BICSI goes, I don't think so. I think we covered everything. I will, as I'm looking at the the show as we're talking here on the other screen, and I do see the BICSI Cares logo on there. And you know what? If I will plug one thing, it's that organization. And you'll smile when I say this, but it makes you remember Ray Jondron walking around with his stickers.
Yeah, and he was not shy about, because I used to take my badge and flip it around backwards, so that way people couldn't see who I was, especially when I worked for a contract, because then every manufacturer wanted to talk to you, right? So I always flipped it around backwards. He had no problems coming up and flipping it over to see if I had that sticker.
Bet if you didn't have that blue sticker, it was your turn.
Why don't you? Where's your sticker at? I'm gonna go get it right now. Next time I see you, you better have that sticker on there.
That's it.
Yeah, I miss him. He was a character. He really, really was.
Yep, and a gentleman to boot.
Yes, he was. All right, Brad. Well, I appreciate your time, and I hope the audience, I hope that you gleaned something out of this as well too. And if you have the opportunity to ever attend a BICSI conference, whether it's in face-to-face or virtual, it sounds to me like Brad and I are both in agreement. You need to do it. You just need to do it. And if you don't have the money, a lot of times you can get the free pass for the exhibit halls, even at the face-to-face ones. Because I live in Florida, and there was many times where I would go over and grab an exhibit hall pass from one of our vendors and go in. So you can get into there free as well. And it's a great way to stay current with all the new stuff and all the new fusion splicers and all the other cool stuff that's out there. I highly recommend it. So until next time, everybody, be safe.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.